How's everybody doing?
Good.
Good. Carl and Pump covered everything, so quickly I'm going to discuss. Speakers should always talk before they come and present together. If I had known Carl was going to go with the new kid thing, I would have a new kids on the block slide. Which new kid is Carl? Donnie, Kelly, Jordan? You guys can, we'll do it next time. And Haney Palm, I just wanted to say, J.R. James is still for sale for 10% of what you paid for McCluskey. All right, now we got that business out of the way. Here we have supply and demand numbers. These are the numbers you're all used to seeing, the way we've always tracked where prices should be and how much we've got to sell. And yeah, we use a little different number. We go with a 1031 carryout because no new crop peanuts are being used at the end of the USDA marketing year, so we just adjust that a little bit. Most numbers you see with the summer carryout, about 1.1 million. Yeah, we've adjusted that for the consumption at that point, so we go with 900,000, which is a ballpark number at this time. Production was right around 3 million tons this year, making availability almost 4 million. Estimated demand at 2.3 to 2.4 million tons means that we should have a carry out somewhere in the 1.5 to 1.6 million ton range next year. And with those numbers up there on the screen, you would expect prices would be down somewhere in the 30s. And they're not, because supply and demand really at this point doesn't matter. It's about what the shellers own. That is the actual supply. And what they're willing to run through the plants, what they're willing to get shelled. And at this point, they can really take it on an as-needed basis. If you need the peanuts, they can get the peanuts, they can get them shelled, and they can get them to market. But you know, if they took it and contracted every single one of the peanuts that are being planted right now, it would do nothing but hamper the market all the way through. It's the trickle-down effect that Carl was talking about with stacking the farmer stock warehouse to the ceiling, not being able to fumigate, having to bail it out and spend more money. All these costs trickle down through the system. So you may not like the shellers aren't contracting, but they're doing it for the benefit of the global market until we figure out a solution, because it doesn't look like we're going to have a short crop anytime soon. If we look at competing commodities, are not favorable right now. Corn. All right. Corn needs to be somewhere, $4.50, $4.75, $5 bushel in order to be competitive with peanuts, based on the current program. Current, closed on Friday at $3.73. Still a long way off. So the possibility of the September corn futures rising to $4.50 to $5 between now and the time that plantings come, highly unlikely. I'm willing to bet with anybody in the room that it will not get there. So see me before I leave. I'm taking bets. Based on that, corn acreage is going to fall off, and it's going to fall off in the southeast to peanuts, because we go to the next slide. Cotton. There we go. Cotton needs to trade above 75. And y'all know these costs better than I do. I'm ballparking. Really, I've heard it's closer to 80 cents to be competitive. We'll call it 75, because cotton's not even close right now. Closed December cotton closed at 58.93 on Friday, and below 60. We're going the wrong direction, and that right there is not a pretty chart. I spent 14 years in the investment business, and that is not something that we would invest in there. It is really, really ugly. So, with that said, this is an El Nino year. We're looking at likely a big peanut crop. I'm not going to get into all of the meteorological minutia, but I will tell you the last time we had an El Nino similar to this was 97 into 98. And those are the production numbers at the bottom. And if you can't see them, it's more for me to look at. The biggest fall off was in Florida. Florida saw a 20% drop in yields that year. We're dealing with different varieties. Things have changed a lot since 97, 98. So this is more anecdotal, just kind of an FYI of what the Shelley community is looking at. By not contracting this, it gives them the flexibility to manage the price, manage the supply, and also it insulates a little bit against the possibility of a bad crop this summer. I mean, I'm not saying we're going to have one, but the water turned off in 97, 98. The Panhandle of Florida had its wettest winter ever. It's still a record. From January through May, they had their wettest winter ever. Then from June through September, it was the driest it's ever been. So I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if it does, we're looking at potentially a big bad crop, and that becomes a nightmare to manage, and it becomes especially a nightmare if you own the crop. So this is kind of twofold why we're not contracting. So our contracting as heavily as we're used to. That is a 5-year price history of the jumbo runner. I remember people said, and this is about the time I was getting in the business, said that prices were never going to get below 75, 80 cents again. This was a new paradigm. You can look at that chart right there and tell that those prices up around $1.25, that's not a new paradigm, that's called an anomaly. We've fallen off, and even as we've increased supply, and I mean, you saw the carryout numbers, and the carryout numbers are going to grow. We still managed to keep price steady, and that you have to say is a credit to the shellers for the way they've managed this thing, and the way they managed to keep prices up so they don't just fall off a cliff, so they can still make money, so they can still support the industry. Because right now we're in an environment where I know with our buyers, we're recommending them contract as far out as they'll let you go. If they'll contract you into 2019, knock yourself out, put on a layer, put on half if you can, because your upside risk is far greater than your downside risk. This should be fairly close to the bottom. I mean, I can't imagine prices going much, much lower. You may get a cent or two. Nobody throw anything. But the risk to the upside is substantial. If you have a weather system move in, like what you saw in South Carolina last year, 75 to 80% of the U.S. peanut crop is grown in 125 square mile radius. That's going to be a problem. And prices could jump 7, 10, 12 cents. And that is tremendous upside risk with a penny or two that you might benefit to the downside if we keep growing this pile. So we don't hope we have a problem, but that's the biggest catalyst right now, based on especially all the international numbers. We'll get to that in a second. If you look at this is a 5-year history of peanut millings by month. The green shaded area, want to take another picture, Kyle? The green shaded area is runner peanut milling. The blue lines are total peanut millings. And if you look back, I'm going to walk over here. Now, this pointer doesn't work. Can y'all hear me? Yes. If you look right in here, that's when we contracted. It had that, oops. We had that big 12 crop. And shellers owned all that crop basically. And they milled like crazy. You can see all of those lines up there that are above 500 million pounds with 250,000 tons being milled out per month. Other than the little holiday break in there, they went about 13 months milling close to 250,000 tons a month. Just wearing out the machinery, wearing out the workers, milling like crazy. Since that time, we haven't gone over that at all. Millings stay around 200,000, give or take 180 per month. The milling rate is your supply. If you look at a 12-month milling, that's your 12-month supply. It doesn't matter what crop production is. This is the chart that we look at when we're figuring out supply and demand, because that's what matters. How much are they going to build? And until we find an outlet for all of these excess peanuts, that's the only thing that's going to matter. But if we find an outlet, that's going to jump. I mean, there's capacity out there, but there's no reason to run to full capacity if you don't have an outlet for the peanuts. It just creates more costs, more storage costs, more quality problems, likely, and that's not good for anyone. So these are somewhat dated. I did these at a presentation in December, but I just wanted to give the basic idea that we are not exporting as much as we have been. I was talking to Patrick Archer, and he's going to go over some of this with you, but Canada and Mexico have picked up the pace a little bit, so they've helped offset. But to the EU, you can see those numbers right there. There's a lot of red numbers in that far right column, and double-digit numbers, because they're able to get peanuts blanched more cheaply from Argentina. So as long as Argentina's got peanuts to sell and big crops to sell, they do not use their crop. 10% is about domestic consumption in Argentina. The rest of it is exported. So as Andy Palm was saying, they've lowered their export tariff, or removed the export tariff on redskin. It's not likely they're going to increase redskin that substantially because they make more on the blanched, but it still gives them an outlet. If they keep having big crops, they've got that outlet. So we move on to the next slide. This is Southeast Asian countries, and I'll send anyone this slide that wants it. It's just kind of interesting to look at. You have changes year over year. Some of these countries will have big increases one year, do nothing the next year, and it just seems to have no real consistency to it. That's because all of these countries can smuggle peanuts into China. So it's kind of a musical chairs of who's the smuggling country of choice. So, right? No comment? Let me know if you want this slide. We've already been through these numbers, so I won't go through every number with you, but this just shows you, Argentina had a big crop. They're off to another good start this year. India had a terrible, they have two growing seasons. They have the Rabi and the Kharif. The Rabi crop is irrigated, that's going on now. The Kharif crop is in the summertime, and that's the monsoon fed. 3 of the last 4 Kharif crop, which is their big crop, 3 of the last 4 years have been severe underperformers. India has produced over 8 million metric tons? Usually 6, but it's produced as much as 8, or just over 8. And that production's down to 4 to 4.5 million metric tons. So that's a significant drop off. That should create opportunities for us in the U.S. But that hasn't materialized yet, except for the one kind of anomaly there that we had in late 2012 into 13 with China taking some fairly significant volume from us. Lastly, you've seen these prices from Andy Palm. I've got this track back going 5 years, but it just is too much to fit on the page. But basically, it just shows you that red line is the Chinese CIF Rotterdam price. You can see their prices have been up and stay up. The green line is the U.S., blue line is Argentina, and you can see where they converge about the time Argentina turned in a nice crop, and they are now just marginally below us. They tend to stay $50 a metric ton below where we are right now, and they're able to do that because they don't consume their crops. So, in closing, I'll say this: we all come across lots of different people in our lives. We go to different conferences. We have different commodities we may be involved in. If you hear something that, no matter how crazy it sounds, whether it's a storage solution or a marketing opportunity, whatever it may be, don't just say, nah, that'll never work in peanuts. Run it up the flagpole. We need out-of-the-box thinking. We need to find ways to get rid of this surplus. And I mean, some of the showers have worked on storage solutions to extend crop years. That work is still going on, and that testing is still going on. I know the National Peanut Research Lab was looking at bag grain storage for farmer stock. People are trying things to extend these crop years and make these peanuts marketable longer. So good ideas don't just come from the people in the research community, they can come from people in the entire peanut community. So keep your eyes and ears open, and let's find a way to get all these peanuts sold through us, hopefully. Take care.